Hi everyone, my name is Maya Zlatanova from Find Me Cure, and today I'm with Nicole Makala from Iron Insights. Nicole, can you share a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I provide consulting services to the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry around generating meaningful insights out of their contact centers.
Yeah, and Nicole and I actually share the same passion for supporting patients. We actually got connected quite recently, and we were chatting about how the different worlds supporting clinical trials and supporting patients throughout these programs for Beyond the Drug. They might seem like different worlds, but actually it's doing one and the same thing, which is giving the best support to patients in order for them to get like the most out of like whatever is it the clinical trial or the program. And I was telling Nicole that when we started Find Me Cure a couple of years ago, I literally was personally involved with reaching out to contact centers that were listed as the contact person for a given clinical trial. And the experience was such that very often they either don't come back to me at all, or when I managed to speak with someone, they would tell me, why don't you go and ask your GP or your doctor for this clinical trial? And I was thinking, if I knew about the clinical trial from my own doctor, would I have reached out to them? Not. So it's like I felt like it's a dead end, and we had to find a way to support patients. Thankfully, we were able to do things differently, and so far we've been able to help more than 600,000 patients to get more aware about clinical trials. But with Nicole, we were discussing that there are so many good practices that we can take from the patient support programs in the post-marketing period of time. And Nicole, why don't you share with us basically which are the best practices that you've learned while working on these patient support programs?
Sure. So, I think that when in our conversations, I really kind of identified how different it was and glaring in the two worlds, the clinical trial world and kind of the post-marketing world. So in a post-marketing situation, we're looking more at lots of patient support, lots of different touch points with patients, lots of different website support, inbound contact centers, as well as patient support kind of that can lend itself into disease state education and awareness, helping to navigate access and reimbursement. So how does a patient get therapy from a financial perspective? And looking at kind of the coaching and education that can happen throughout that journey for both the lifestyle, disease state, and therapy itself.
It sounds very complementing to everything that the patient would need to go through, like including their like normal life, which doesn't
Yeah.
always happen in clinical trials. This brings me to one of the reasons why this happens, and in my opinion, is that regulations have a huge portion of. It's a huge part of the reason why we cannot build this user experience for patients when looking for clinical trials. I was telling you that sponsors of clinical trials, they very much fear to have anything to do with a potential participant, and that's absolutely understandable because in the end of the day, they know that they are not supposed to know who these participants are. Even when they are just reaching out for information at the beginning. And I think that the regulations in the post-marketing phase are different, right?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's the exact opposite. So we're looking at ways to really make that connection and build rapport with patients, calling them by their first name, capturing information on that call, and then recalling it in future calls if we have them. So yeah, very different. And I think that that really speaks to that level of support that can be given, as well as that level of kind of trust that goes along with that coach or navigator throughout that process. The patient really feels that this is a part of their care team and an extension of that overall kind of visit.
And in the clinical research industry currently, where we speak about the centralized clinical trials, and last week actually, I was hosting two discussion panels on the topic, the centralized clinical trials, and what we outlined is that more and more, the more we have remote support to patients, we will also need kind of like patient concierge type of service. And that might mean that we might also need to change regulations for that. I don't know. We'll see about that. But I was thinking that you mentioned something previously, which is also quite interesting. You mentioned that support goes just beyond just a call center, but it's more like multi-channel approach. So what's your experience with different platforms when supporting patients?
Yeah, so there are so many clever and smart ways to reach out to patients and physicians today. So I think that, you're never going to get away from that traditional picking up the phone and
Yeah.
asking a question. I think that's just kind of, as humans, we're just so used to it and it's ingrained in us. But leveraging text, being able to use apps for medication reminders or appointment reminders. There's also really cool ways that you can use apps to log information. And then I've seen that information be fed back to physicians' offices, which is really kind of neat. Again, looking at that holistic picture. I think at the end of the day, it's really about meeting the patient where they need to be met. And that is going to look different today, certainly than it did 5 years ago, and what it will look like 5 years from now.
Yeah, I'd love to learn from everyone else out there to like about what's their experience like and where they see the future will be for supporting patients in clinical trials, but also in these programs beyond the drug. And everyone that wants to reach out to explore opportunities and exchange experience and is more than welcome to contact Nicole or me. And thank you, Nicole, for sharing your ideas with us today and your
Thank
experience.
you. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.